Hi guys, welcome to my new channel. I'm building a BMW E30 rally car and I just started making a video about it, so I'll just take you back from previous year when I've been welding a lot of rust been removed. As you can see here, the seals were completely gone, so refabricated them all with small pieces. Also around the seat mounting, which isn't going to be used because of a rally car. Just put it in a rotation so I could hang it on its side and repair the outer seal. As you can see here, first the inner seal and then the outer going on. Then I started removing the unseal because I wanted to see where all the rust was. And as you can see, there are still a few hidden places, like those usual spots. Also, this rear arch was really bad. There's almost like a centimeter of filler, as you can see here, and the rust started to come from underneath, so I cut it all out. Also the inner arch, replaced that first, then replaced the outer arch and welded that in. Also on the other side the seal was also bad, so first I repaired the inner seal. I know my welds are not that great, but it's strong, so it's for a rally car it's good enough. When I bought the car there was an Intrex suspension with it, so I put that on for now. I'll just see if they were okay. Then I cleaned the inside and sprayed it before it went for the roll cage by Biesheuvel. And when it came back I started doing the last repairs. So I put on the seat mounts first and then the bracket for the fire extinguisher. And then I started with the brake lines, fuel lines. As you can see here, the fuel lines are now in. This is where we start now. I'm just finishing up the last bit of fuel line from the fuel tank towards the fuel filters and pumps. So it was the first time for me cutting up the hoses, PTFE hoses, and connecting them up. I know you can do this in a vise, but because of all the stuff from the car I can't reach my vise now, so I have to clean up my garage. I then put on some brackets on the fuel lines to keep them together, and I'll see how it will go and if they stay at the place where they are now or I need to change it. Next thing I did was measuring the holes for the seat mountings. So I drilled them and then mounted the plates underneath. These will be welded later on when the car's in the rotisserie again. I then started cleaning the back because I needed to put the fuel filters and fuel pumps in here. There was still some grinding left off when the cage was fabricated. So I then got my roll pot where the fuel pumps will be mounted. I first removed the bracket which will hold on to the fuel pumps. Next I put my fuel pumps in, and when editing this video I saw I forgot one of the plugs on the one of the fuel pumps. I'll remove it later. You can see here I put it in without removing it, because I was too busy with making this video and putting in the fuel pumps at the same time. Here you can see me putting together the first fuel filter. I was checking if there's a flow direction on, but there isn't, so I'll check that on later. So I put on the AN fittings to mount into the fuel lines and the swirl pod. I then put on the clamp for the fuel filter and place it where I think it will be a good spot for it. I then assembled the Y piece coming from the fuel pumps, which needed to go to one line to the last fuel filter and then going towards the front to the engine. But then I forgot to put on the AN banjos on the fuel pump. And the other connection as well. So I put those on before I was starting to see what the best way to route the lines would be. I then started to cut up the first hoses for the back. I know a lot of you don't recommend cutting it with a scissor, but it was a new one and the sharpest thing I had, because cutting it would melt the inside of the PTEV hose. So this was for me the best way at this moment. First you put on the locking nut, then remove the tape, then put in the metal insert, as you can see here, and then you push in the fitting and you tighten it all up. Again, you can much better do this in a vise, which I would do in the future if I need to do it again. After checking if it's the right size, put on some tape, cut it, put the nut on, the end on, then the fitting, and do this a couple more times, and then you have the complete fuel system. And after a couple of hours you end with this fuel filter, 2 swirl pot, fuel pumps, to another fuel filter going back inside the car to the front. I then mounted my seat back in for the passenger because I needed to see where I could mount the fuel lines together with the positive cable. As you can see here, need to see where's the clearance, where to mount it all. And then took my seat back out after I meshed everything, then drilled some holes to put some rivets in. Then a rivet nut. And then putting the fuel line and holding it secure with some P-clamps. And then doing this a few more times until the fuel line was secure inside the car. But then I realized it would be a better idea to first mount the side mounts for the seat belts, because the fuel lines are really close to it, so I would make sure it wouldn't interfere with each other. After I put the seatbelt mounting in, I could then rewire or reroute my fuel lines and drill some more holes. So then again, a few holes being drilled, riv nuts being inserted, and then the fuel lines would be connected to it. Put on another clamp to hold the lines together, but I think I will replace it with some P-clamps in the future. And at the front of the car I could use some existing studs to hold on the fuel lines with a plastic nut, which are OEM from BMW. I then started on the fire extinguisher system. First I measured the first tube until the passenger and driver's side. Then I use some smaller P-clips to hold this line. So some more drilling, riv nuts in, and tighten it up. Because this was the first time I ever installed a fire extinguisher system, I checked regularly how to mount it, what the manual said. So that took a couple of hours to figure it all out. So it would be safe and within all regulations. I then removed the dashboard so I could put on the final piece for the driver and co-driver. But I think I'll redo this piece because the bend is way too big. So too much tubing still inside the car. I then moved forward within the engine bay. So there will be a rubber grommet when going to the firewall. That's in a later stage. I first wanted to mount all the lines and I'll make the bracket later on. So there needs to be 4 fire extinguisher nozzles within the engine bay. So I put the first one just with the fuse box, and then a lot of drilling, riv nuts, and some more P-clamps to hold the lines in firmly. So then I started to make another bracket at the front so that it could go all the way to the other side. So as you can see here, I'm making another bracket to hold on the extinguisher line. And I think in the future I will add another bracket or two to hold on to this line, because next to the headlights is now a little bit floppy. So I could reuse one of the grounding on the battery tray, which isn't going to be used anymore, to mount the line. And then I used a little bracket to hold the last nozzle in place, and this line will go underneath the roll cage once I'll start assembling the whole car again, because it's now in temporarily, so I can mark and drill all the fittings, and then I'll just completely empty the car again, paint it all in the inside, and then put it all back together, so it will be all protected. Then also on the driver's side I measured the mounting holes for the seat belt and put them on, and as said earlier, I will weld them on later when the car's in the rotisserie again. Also the brake lines, they needed to be holded down, so also here some more drilling, riveting and screwing to do. And the last thing I did this day was making sure the electrical wires were also held on by some brackets. I gave them also some P-clamps and some drilling and riveting. Then I noticed still I had to route the pull cables for the fire extinguisher, and I think I'll mount them together with the electrical wires in the same clamps, because there's still some room on that. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next episode.